in my music, and even some like weird bass stuff. So I'm gonna turn it up. Yep. Respace spotted. So yeah, I mean, this is, just a general build with some nice percussion and atmospheric stuff into like a nice big respace lead. There's a lot of automations going on, tons of stuff. If this stuff will be out to listen to hopefully soon, but just gonna hop into some new stuff.
Space between my body and my mind, where I just observe. A space where I can just
really focused on vocal processing in this. It's not a very complex track.
And what isn't. I don't need anything when I'm here, because it feels like.
And this is just a simple splice vocal, by the way, guys. It's just utilized in a creative way.
The space where I can go deeper.
Grip and skip towards the second drop so you can hear.
The space where I can go deeper. Because it feels like.
So, nothing crazy. It's just really clean. Every element has its space, It's a cool vocal mix. Get this one. This is kind of my play on Afro house stuff. Let's skip forward. Yeah, so kind of get the idea. We'll go ahead and hop into this track. We're gonna go ahead and do a full listen through of this track. Just overall creativity, like automations, composition itself is a little complex. But it's not so complex that anybody can't do it. It's composition is really just, the proper arrangement of elements, and then the introduction and intentional introduction of those elements, right? So whenever you're introducing anything, lead, a pad, any element that's going to be in your song, oftentimes you want to focus on, how you introduce it, how that element moves throughout the music, and then how that element exits. So, that's a very common composition practice, and if you can nail all three of those down, you will have a very, very nice song, I promise. So I do want you guys to focus on, those three parts about every element that you can hear, and just, the perception that you have of those elements whether they be, going around your head, or some kind of, placement in the stereo image, or how they're coming in and how they're being introduced. So And then if you guys have any questions, make sure that you mark those down so that we can talk about them when we're breaking it down. All right, let's go. All right. So, I think a good way to kind of break this down might just be to go through the different sections. Go through the drums to start. There's nothing really crazy going on here. I made this song. I started this song because I heard this song. And I really liked the relationship between this, so the kick and the ride cymbal that's like on top of it. So, or this one specifically, sorry. This is the... So I just really enjoyed like how that sounded, and so I wanted to try and implement it in my own production. And so, dude, cat, quit! She's attacking my side. So I really just started off with this thing. Didn't even have like. There was none of that, so it was just kind of that. And it was kind of cool. So, you know, I kept going. Started kind of getting a little bit more funky as the time went on. Kick is nothing crazy. It's just a, you know, generalized kick. I don't remember where I got this from. It's just really powerful and boomy. Took some of the highs out, rolling out the lows. It's powerful, you know? So, we got some shaker loops in here as well. Coming in here. Get a little bit of reverb on... No, I don't have any reverb. Just a simple shaker loop. Just getting the tops. We're doing this. So in this breakdown, we're using a little bit of a filter to kind of open it up as that goes on. Added this thing in here as well. Oh yeah, I've got some cool little funky hits. Just little, you know, interesting sounds that are cool or placed in a different way in the stereo image is something that I really, really like to focus on when it comes to percussion. Because you're going to have, you don't want, you know, everything running down the center for your percussion. It's going to cause just stagnation in your mix. So if I were to put this at zero right here and let this play out. Toss this back to 0. Like, yeah, it's clean, but it's just not interesting. So whenever you're looking for sounds and actually trying to find something interesting to place in your music and create character to your sound, keep that in mind. Try and, you know, introduce an element that you wouldn't necessarily think could work, but, you know, use it in just a one-off hit. It doesn't even have to be something necessarily that's rhythmic and consecutive. It can be something that, you know, happens once in your song or anything. So it's really helpful to find interesting things that are like maybe way off to the left side in the stereo image, or, you know, even down the center can be utilized right too. But I often try to pick anything that's not centered. So, you guys have any questions about the drums? I think we're doing a little bit of sketch cassette stuff here. We're doing some automations, but it's not a whole lot, so This stuff is so that I am getting a turning an auto pan on right here. It's just getting this one sound effect, kind of white noise to, again, place it in the stereo image in an interesting way to make, like this specific part of the song be a little bit more of a ear-catching moment. So. Just adds a little bit of character. It's cool. Was anybody typing anything? I saw some typing. Anybody, don't be afraid to ask questions, even if it's something you don't really necessarily, yeah. There's no stupid questions in production. There's a lot to learn in music, and even if it's just like, what does that sound like? What does that sound? What does the EQ look like? How do I find the right sounds for what I'm after? I think that's more of an intuitive experience thing. For the most part, I try to the true panning thing. Hang on. Okay, so let me. Yeah, I'll just go through the questions one by one. So with sounds, I think that how I approach sound selection is so I don't really like to focus on the quality of the sound. I do like to have, a nice sounding sound that's not going to be, distorted and clipping and stuff like that. But at the same time, if you do have sounds that are clipping and distorted, you can fix that oftentimes just by mixing techniques or compression or EQing. And so whenever I approach selecting a sound, I try and find the most interesting thing that I can. Something that's going to make me feel something that's not stagnant, something that may be a little bit different to what you would think is normal. So I don't know if that kind of answers, because it's more so one of the things where sound selection is a very dependent on the music and experiences that you've had in the past. So because I mean, if you just listen to the same genre over and over again, right? This is going back into that the genre perspective of not sticking to genres. But if you listen to the same genre over and over again, you'll notice that a lot of people will stick to the same samples and using the same sounds for a lot of their productions. And though that is a beneficial practice, I find that it's also nice to get a perspective from other artists in other genres, because you can find creativity in just about every genre that you can think of. And oftentimes it's going to be more creative than something that is the main genre that you listen to. So I implore you to just go and look and seek out different things that you're not used to and get out of your comfort zone to actually listen and find interesting sounds, because that will broaden your horizon to actually thinking about what sounds can fit in your music. So that was a long answer, but okay. Can I go over the true panning thing? It's only specific to Ableton. Okay. Are you talking about the auto pan thing with this? Which panning thing? Oh, okay. You're talking about the stereo pan. So, this is not super necessary. So, you have a general left and right pan, right? So, I think in FL you can actually do this with the stereo enhancer. plugin, but you can click split stereo mode, and this is going to give you control over the individual left and right channels. So you can have true control over the like natural and raw stereo signal. So say if I wanted to place these drums in a like very specific part of the stereo image, like right, and give it the width of like maybe 10 units. So we can place it on positive 12 and positive 22, and this is going to be somewhere over to the right side for pretty much all of the percussion. So it's like a little bit right, it's just not central, but it's like pretty narrow, but just to the right. So you can do that. Interesting stuff with the full control over the stereo image with the left and right channels. And like I said, you can do this very similar effect and technique with the stereo enhancer. I think that's what it's called, NFL. The one that has like the 4 sliders, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you can slide them up and down. Though I don't know how to use that very well. I've just kind of generalized people when mentoring them, but I'm sure there's plenty of YouTube videos if you want to get to know how to use that. Stereo shaper, that might be it. So yeah, that's a really great way to have a more control over your stereo image and get more specific with where your sounds are placed. That will also, the more specific that you are with where you place sounds in your stereo image, whether that be a lead, a bass. I mean, typically bass, you want to have your sub and up to like 200 hertz centered, but that's also just a guideline. You can break that rule. Okay, sorry, I left on a tangent. When placing things in the stereo image, the more specific that you get, whether it be a lead, a pad, a percussion hit, anything, it's going to benefit your mix and make things clearer and easier to hear each element if you do like a specific spot for everything. So that being said, you don't want to go crazy with it and place things hard left, hard right, and have everything like wide and crazy and everything super out to the sides, because then you're going to have a mix with everything stereo and you're not going to be able to accent specific elements. So there is benefit to having a wide mix, and there's also benefits to having a narrow mix with wide accents. So just be careful with it. But that is how you do it. Okay, what was the next one? Okay, I think that was just about it. Yes, DearVR is great. Though DearVR can be a little bit of a problematic thing when going into mixing. Because binaurals do this thing where they will affect the phase alignment of a signal while also EQing it. And it's going to, so I actually used that plugin in this song, and I'll go into why I used it and why it might actually not be something that I'm going to keep in the final mix. But it is really cool for interesting elements. It's just, I would recommend not using that plugin for lead elements because it can mess with your mix and the mono compatibility of it. So, but for like, ear candy and one-off things that happen and, maybe a pad or an atmosphere, that is a very, very nice plugin to use. I think I actually used it quite a lot for a lot of the atmospheres in this. All right, let's move on. Don't want to drag this out for a long time, we will go and touch on the bass. So this bass, really, I was just reacting off of the drum relationship with it. So that's typically how I do. Question, what was it? Yeah, okay, we'll touch on we'll touch on that before we go to the bass real quick. So when it comes to percussion and high end, um, I think that your percussion is the most important element of your transient information and the high end of a mix. So when that comes to there's really not a whole lot of mixing on this guy. I'm just doing some soothe stuff to capture the lead over this, some compression. But when it comes to like actually mixing a lot of this stuff, some of this stuff had some heavy lows, and I cut off some of the highs. Like I think this had a lot of highs, so rolled off some of those to get just that 800 to 5K range. But generally, whenever you have a lot of high transient information that if you just keep stacking it on top of each other, it's going to get harsh. And that's why having things in the stereo image placed in specific areas can be very beneficial for that. Because it separates the signal across the stereo image and allows you to hear them easier. So whenever going to monocompatibility, it's going to have, I still haven't mixed this quite for monocompatibility, so there is some phase issues going on, but at the same time, it's still clear. So just to touch on that, whenever I talk about phase alignment, something to check with that is you can get a correlation meter. One that's great is Voxengo. They make one, the correllometer, but they also have one on SPAN and MICD. So this right here, this thing is your phase alignment. So you always want this to be positive whenever it comes to your phase relationship. If you have a negative phase relationship when it comes to alignment, left and right phase, you're going to run into signal loss issues whenever it comes to monocompatibility. So just be careful with that. Yes. All right. Any major tips for effects mixing? I would always implore people to do effects on Ascend. Yeah. And reverb side chaining, yes. Yeah, JR says busing or sends. So I do sends in an interesting way sometimes. So I will have a reverb, say this Valhalla just for example, and we will set up on the effect rack a dry signal and a wet signal. And this will be 100%, so it's just going to be my effect. And then I will put a utility on before the effect so that I can affect it based on volume. This is essentially the exact same thing as using sends in the right side, or returns in Ableton, that's what they're called. And those are like using a volume knob before the effect is literally just the exact same thing as sending it to a return. But I like to do it this way because then it's on the specific sound that I am using it for. So unless I'm using like a return for multiple different sounds across my mix, I'll typically do it this way. Yeah, so we'll probably We'll so anything that's not pertaining to the specific part that we're going over at the moment, let's hold those questions to the end. So all right, let's move on to the bass. So bass, like I said earlier, I was kind of reacting off of the kick relationship and trying to find a groovy line to go with it. I mean, kick is just a 4x4, but the percussion does add a good bit of groove to it. So. So originally this bass, let's get rid of all of this. Let's get rid of all of the automation real quick. And we'll go through this because automation is a huge part of what makes this bass interesting. So like it's cool.
मैंने बोला ये पैक करके लिखा हुआ मैंने आपको कहा
but
CH2
it has no movement.
thrice
It's pretty stagnant. It's staying the same exact tonality, other than, you know, changing the notes of it. So whenever it comes to automations, and so automations are a huge part of my production flow. I go crazy with automations, especially cutoff filters, and doing another cutoff filter here. Or that's the same one, actually. So we're doing on-off of certain effects. So I'm doing sketch cassette right here. On-off, it's just adding some like gritty, disgusting, destroying sound to it. Doing another on-off of another sketch cassette, which is just a different tonality of that same thing. So let's see. So what are we doing with this filter cutoff? So the cutoff filter is just using kind of as an accent to, you know, create a groove in the bass line itself. So if we pair that with the kick, so it's just as the actual bass line progresses on, you know, this part is accented, and then like this is the one, right? So right here is the one, but well, no, right here is the one. Sorry, but so it's just an interesting way to move to the next section. And if you add a ton of automation, even if it's syncopated and consistent, so I think I just copied this. It's the same, well, except for here. But this is going into my B section of the drop. So that's one thing that I like to do, is just kind of change up and create some variation. So I'll make my original like automation to kind of get a good groove going, and then that will be, you know, copied over here, and we'll make some little touches, little changes. We got rid of this guy and just went straight up for and then whenever the kick comes out, you know, taking that cutoff filter down and making the bass really soft. Just, I mean, overall, it's mainly just to add character to the sound so that it's not just one, you know, stagnant bass that's hitting every single time, right? You don't want stagnation in your mix. You want interesting elements. You want things to sound like they are organic and moving around and jumping around so that people will jump around when listening to your music. So, so let's see. whenever we're doing some all right, we have that bass covered, and then we have a top layer bass as well, which is not really much of a bass. It's kind of just adding a little bit of a springy kind of top layer to it. It's just to add some character to it again. I mean, that's everything in sound design is just adding until it sounds full of life. And if I take it off, you know, it still sounds cool, but it's not quite as organic. I didn't cover that crazy pitch glide, so that's actually done in the MIDI, I believe. Oh, no, it's not. Okay, what are we doing that on? We're doing that on a shifter. Okay. Or no, we're not. I don't know where I'm doing that at. I am not sure where I'm doing that, but you can achieve that by doing, you know, some pitch bending in the MIDI itself. You can achieve that by doing it with a shifter, or a pitch shifter with like a ring mod or a frequency shift. There's plenty of ways to add life into your music. So, all right. Let's see, what is this bass?
Space is a three-dimensional continuum.
Very hush. So this is just accenting the next part. So going into like our segments of. So this is right here. So. So it's just kind of adding a little bit more low end. All right, let's go into some questions because I'm running out of things to talk about the bass. It's pretty simple. It's just a lot of automations, which I guess is not necessarily simple, but once you start actually employing or implementing automations in your music, it's going to be second nature. You just need to literally pick a knob and just automate everything. Let's see. All right, what do you generally automate for basses? Cutoff filter is typically my number one first thing to automate, and then I'll automate other things as I progress through the music. It just depends on what kind of effect I'm trying to achieve. Say I'm trying to achieve like a super wide part to where the bass goes out super wide. I'll do like a reverb flush and just like automate the reverb to 100% feedback for just a small little part, right? And make it super wide. And or like you could do that same kind of deal with like a flanger or a phaser, just make it really wide for a specific segment. But cutoff filter is my number one thing to automate. It's going to add the most movement, especially if you have a bass with a lot of harmonics. Let's see, the pitch bass thing. Let's see if we can actually find where that's actually being done. It might be in this thing, actually. Oh no, it's the sketch cassette. So this is This is doing a bunch of flutter. So I'm just using flutter if I turn this down. So this is a cool little plugin. It's super cheap. It's like $20. Great for adding some just character. It's a cassette, like a tape cassette player plugin, emulation plugins for. I like to use it sometimes on my master just to add a little bit of warmth and character in like the mix. But yeah, it's really great for effects like this as well. So but yeah, so I'm using the flutter on that to get the pitch. And it's just that one spot, right? It happens a couple times throughout the song, but it's oh, do I have mono on? I do have mono on. I'm dumb. So yeah, that answered. Let's see. Glide, yes, glide is a cool thing to also have. We don't really have much going on. This is actually just a preset. If you find presets that are good, use them. Don't worry about sound design. But sound design is more than just, making the synthesis part. Effects are huge. So, let's see, what's the next? You want your song to be organic, moving, jumping around, so that when people listen to your track, they jump around too. Yeah. Alright, question about the bass. I heard after one of the drop moments where the bass sounds really huge with a lot of sub, I think, leading into another section after the drop ended. Yes, sound design, synthesis is really fun. I don't know if I did a whole lot of synthesis in this song, actually, because this was made in my in-laws' house over Christmas, and I was just using my laptop in a room with headphones and made this in like probably a couple hours. So I was just moving quick and trying to get an idea down and fine-tuned it later, but it's one of those things where it was just a very quick songwriting session. And let's see, the empty noise vocal is just recorded on my phone. Like, just going into that real quick. Just recorded a bunch of different takes of it. But so okay, let's try and find this really huge with a lot of subsection that you're talking about. So I'm assuming it's right here. Okay, I'm not doing anything special with the bass. I'm just giving it space. The bass is exactly the same as it was in the first drop. However, it has less elements, stacked over the top of it. So I don't have my percussion going. Like this percussion right here is, adding a good bit of frequency information across the spectrum. So you're focusing a lot on that, right? But right here, we don't have any of that percussion until this part. So you're focusing on the bass, and that can be utilized to add emphasis to specific elements in your mix. I do have that thing that's going around like crazy and around your head. However, because that is so specific in where it is in the stereo image, you're still focusing on the bass quite a lot. Does that make sense? Cool. Alright. Alright, we will move on to... Or what is this? I don't know what this part is. This is just like a little extra... I'm just layering it over the bass just to add a little bit more emphasis, like I said. So it's just happening after that first part. So the first part's got just the bass and the percussion, and then add a little bit more, you know? Alright, let's move on to the synths. Whoa, 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 whoa. Calm down. Alright. The synths are interesting. We've got a lot going on in them. Close this bass section, close the Atmos. Just talk about these for a sec. So we've got just a general pad going on, which this is the one that I used in the introduction, and so I figured I'd just continue using it in the drop. But it was really pretty. It's got a lot of character to it. You got this little thing that's kind of doing just a accent on the one each time. How about we turn off my master chain so that we don't have such loud things, because it's doing major compression. Or here, we can put a limiter on it so that we can just get the volume still, but not the distortion. Alright, so let's see, we've got this guy as well, which is the lead. So designing this lead was mostly as a response to the bass. So you know how I said the bass line was responding to the drums. I made the lead as a response to the bass. So we have the drums, we got our bass, and then we've got this lead part. So yes, that's a good life advice, just a limiter to your phones. So, I mean, whenever it comes to instrumentation and arrangement in music, right, so multiple elements in your song and having multiple elements in your song layered over each other is oftentimes the best way to do it, or you know, most people's opinion of the best way to do it. There's no one best way to do anything in music, but this is a great way and a great technique to utilize to make something that's interesting. Is, you know, call and response, and I'm sure that you've heard that terminology before, right? Is having, you know, a typical representation of that would be, you know, having a bass line doing something here and then having your lead do something after it. But it can also be used in a quicker fashion of having polyrhythms. So polyrhythms, when you think about them, are just very fast call and response. So when it comes to that, I tend to like to have
याद रखना
my polyrhythms be in response or be in a specific pocket that, you know, the other elements aren't filling up.
ब्लॉक का सॉल्यूशन
So that's kind of where my head was going with that lead part. And then we have another lead part that comes in halfway through the drop, or towards the end of the drop, that is over this one. And I was just like, I want something funky and chaotic. So I made this thing. And that is some weird automations going on. So it's receiving from this Cthulhu right here, which is, if you guys don't know, it's a sequencer. Made famous by deadmau5 and Steve Duda, who was the creator of it. If you didn't know that, Steve Duda is the X4 guy, so he made Serum and Cthulhu and the OTT that everybody uses. So he's one of deadmau5's best friends. But that's just a tangent. So that sequencer is a great plugin to kind of just get interesting melodies based off of chords. So you can kind of tie a chord structure to them and have it go into a sequence. So I really like using it. It's fun. I should click learn right there because that is... So I actually tied one of my knobs on my MIDI keyboard. So if you guys do MIDI mapping ever at all, that's going to be a great way to add organic sounding automations rather than drawing them in. So, you know, I could have sat here for an hour and drawn this in to get it exactly how I wanted it, right? Or I can just map a knob to the plugin to my MIDI keyboard here and spin the knob like, you know, take it off, spin it while I'm playing the notes, or even if I have the notes already played, you just spin the knob as you record it. Ableton has this cool feature where you can record extra MIDI notes, or automation is automatically recorded if you just click the record button. So yeah, I always recommend to do MIDI mapping for automations rather than drawing them in if you want to achieve a more organic sound. And I thought that was cool. It added a little bit of a funky texture to the lead itself. These leads are nothing crazy. Most of them, like I said, are presets in different synths. This is Diva. I just have a skin on it. So we've got a little bit of a what sound are we at? Back to that. So whenever it comes to preset selection, I mean, generally I would say that the best thing that you can do is just find a really cool pack that you really like, how it sounds, and get the whole pack. Even if it's just like from demos that the pack makes, I'm sure that you will probably be able to use most, if not all, of the sounds in that pack at some point in your production journey. But at the same time, maybe don't spend too much time on picking the exact right sound, because you can always tweak a lot of stuff about the sound. You know, there's the cutoff filter. We've got our resonant peak at the cutoff filter. We've got, you know, effects that we can add to plug in to get some interesting delays, and you can go in and change the, you know, actual sound of the synth itself. If you learn modular synthesis, Diva is a great platform for that. And then also, you know, Serum is a great platform for pretty much every kind of synthesis that you can think of. Digital synthesis. There's sampling in Serum. There's a great mod matrix in it. So there's Vital too. Vital's a free plugin. Vital can do just about everything that Serum can, except for it doesn't have as complex of a mod matrix. But you can make some very interesting things with Vital. So let me. I just changed a good bit about this. So. Alright, I think we're just pretty much back to where we were with that. Anybody have questions about leads? We are doing some interesting Dear VR stuff with this, I believe, actually, so I think this one. So we're just doing frequency automations for cutoff filter in this, and then just copied and pasted. No frequency automations in drop 2 for it. I've got some weird stuff going on here in this drop. This is... where did I learn about wavetable synth sound design? So there's a lot of utilities on YouTube for that. When it comes to synthesis, I mean, it's really simple whenever you learn the basics and foundation of synthesis, right? You've got your sine wave, your other basic shapes, but everything can technically be created from a sine wave. Just based on the different harmonic distortion that you add to that sine wave, you get different kinds of wave types. So it's really simple once you understand the fundamentals of synthesis. I would just recommend you go look up videos of the basics of synthesis itself. That's going to probably be the best way to learn. Like your fundamental harmonic, your different harmonics, your thirds, your just what different distortion types do, what saturation actually is. It's going to be really, really helpful to learn the foundation of synthesis in all of production. I mean, really. So, let's see. Vital seems super loud by default compared to Serum. I mean, I think that that just depends on where you have the output level. So, I mean, if I grab this Serum and turn my master up, you know, to... I don't know which one that was. It was this thing. That's going to be generally, you know, the easiest way. I mean, Vital, I think volume is just kind of a subjective thing based on where you have the settings. I mean, you can achieve the same volume that you can in Vital that you can in Serum. So, Alrighty, let's go to. Oh yeah, let's explain this lead in the drop. So, we're doing some cool stuff here with binaurals, actually. So if you can notice, close your eyes real quick and kind of try and pinpoint where this sound is coming from. I'm not really doing any binaurals before this moment with the lead, but right here we've got something where the lead is moving from, your left side around of it. A lot of the tops are going to be off. You can't really hear a lot of the top end. So, essentially what you would do in that situation, right, is we can get a EQ and just cut a lot of the high end to make it feel like it's behind you, right? And then if we want to make it feel like it's in front of you, it just boosts some of the high end. So there's more, there's a little bit more in-depth ways that you can do that with EQ, and I'm sure that there's videos online that you can look up to achieve something that is a signal in front of you or behind you. I just don't particularly know specifically how to do it right now. But there's plenty of ways to do it. Okay. Any other questions about synths? Nope. All right. Let's move on to our atmosphere in the introduction. So, in the introduction, I wanted to, this was during a time in my life whenever I was trying to deal with some interesting, thoughts about myself and also just about my family and people that were close to me. And there was not necessarily from anybody close to me, but from others that I've had in my life, there's a lot of judgment towards certain things that I was doing or that people around me were doing. And so I wanted to make something to where I was kind of clapping back at that construct of thought, right? So we've got this idea of empty noise, and so the judgment and just everything around you as what people are saying, what people are talking about, whether it be religious, political, about society, that doesn't really matter, but just the generalized construct of people trying to control you, right? My thought was, hey, whatever everybody's saying around you, it's all just empty noise. So that's all you can tie it back to. And that's kind of where this idea of building this like chaotic landscape of people around you, and I've got this like preacher guy talking like about judgment of God, and we've got some people talking about like depression and how there was like a bed that opened up at a psychiatric firm. And so it's just overall trying to make it feel like overwhelming in a sense, and then cutting to empty noise. So we'll just play the atmosphere real quick so that you can kind of understand what I'm talking about. You know, and then yeah, the Scottish preacher guy talking about judgment of God and stuff in the front. So yeah, it's just trying to take an artistic perspective towards sharing something that means a lot to me, right? So it's if you can implement that in your music, it's going to really add character to your mix. I'm gonna just keep stringing together that terminology, but it's true. I mean, this is definitely a very writer-centric thought path, right? Of taking a construct of society and then trying to put it into sound. But if you can, what music is, whenever it comes down to it, is some people don't really believe this, but I strongly think that music is a way to convey a feeling or an idea as an artist through the use of sound, and or can be used in that way, right? So obviously that music is sometimes just a groove and a cool beat, right? But if you can also implement a story into your music, you will very much so create a landscape in your sound and something that is truly original. So try and do that. Can I go through how I did the empty noise vocal processing? Yes, I can. We will touch on vocals in just a sec. So that was kind of part of the Vox. I just added it in here because it's kind of the thing that cuts away all of this noise that's happening, right? It's just a bunch of noise that's happening in society and around you, right? So is there any questions about the atmosphere and building of a story? And because I know that that's a little bit of a hard concept to grasp sometimes for people, is implementing a story into your music and trying to build off of that. The ambient noise. Let's see, which one do we got? This stuff. I have no processing. Are you talking about this thing? This part? You talking about this part? Right here? There's nothing on it. I've got Soothe 2 doing a side chain to make sure that these vocal things that are coming in each time that thing is happening, like the in the background, I want that to cut through over the top of it, so we're doing a Soothe side chain for that. If you don't know how to do a Soothe side chain or have used Soothe in the past, you can use it to carve frequencies out of the frequency spectrum that are specific based on a dynamic input of whatever you use. So I'm basically taking what's happening in this vocal, right? And tossing it over to my FX bus and putting sidechain on and turning the depth up all the way to get just the frequencies from that vocal to cut out of the effects. It's really useful for layering elements and creating a very clear mix. Yeah, it's very useful. I use that technique in just about every production I do. All right. If there is no more questions about the atmosphere, we will go into. We'll cover effects last. We'll go into the vocal processing for that empty noise stuff. This thing is just a delay that I got from this. Or so that no, I captured that, resampled it, and am using it as an introduction piece right here. Oh my gosh.